Okay, hello and welcome. I'm Martyn Ford and I'm known as being the mass monster. The guy that went from skinny to big. How did I do it? Well, here are my 8 top tips to growing mass. Top tip number 1, carbohydrates. Make sure you get plenty of carbohydrates down so you've got the energy to do the training session in the first place. Lots of people get confused with it's protein, protein, protein. Don't get me wrong, protein's important, but without the carbohydrate, you don't need that protein because you're not breaking the muscle down. Ideal amount of carbohydrate you want is 2 to 3 grams per pound of body weight. So if I'm sitting around about 300 pounds at the moment, you've guessed it, that's 600 to 900 grams of carbohydrate per day I'm going to need to be eating. Top tip number 2, never get hungry. One of the worst things you can do is allow your system to get hungry. As soon as you're hungry, that means you're going catabolic. Catabolic, big word, sounds horrible, it is. Basically, your muscles eat away at themselves. So before you leave that house, 1, make sure you know somewhere you can eat, or 2, have food on you at all times. Top tip number 3 is going to be the pre and post workout meal. Okay, now these meals are going to be absolutely vital if you're looking at packing on muscle mass. Now you want to make sure you're consuming these about an hour before, an hour after training. These meals should be mainly based around protein and carbohydrate. You want to try and keep your fats at a minimum. The fats will slow down the speed that the food can be shuttled into the muscles, especially after a workout for the repair. Top tip number 4, make sure you're training big and train heavy. The worst thing you can do is waste a lot of energy on these small isolation exercises. Isolation exercises are mainly aimed at people that are trying to diet down and sketch away at that physique they've already built. The way you build a big, solid, strong physique is through big, solid, strong exercises, also known as compound movements. Top tip number 5, post-workout recovery shake. Now, a lot of guys make the mistake of going into the gym and asking for a protein shake. Protein shake is not a recovery drink. In order to make it a complete recovery drink, you've got to make sure you're having extra ingredients such as carbohydrates, creatine, glutamine, and leucine, the branched chain amino acid. Now ideally you want to be working on a 2:1 ratio, carbohydrate being the 2, protein being the 1. So for instance, if you're taking on 60 grams of carbohydrate post-workout, you want around about 30 grams of protein. This is the ideal ratio to grow muscle mass. Top tip number 6, training intensity. It's vital that you put the body under a massive amount of stress in order to break down the muscle tissue and allow for that extra growth and the repair process to take place. The biggest problem today is that people just don't train hard enough. You see it in every gym across the world. They're more interested in the phones than what they're doing on the bench or on the deadlift or on the squat rack. Make sure that when you're in the gym, you're in the gym to work. 45 minutes to 60 minutes maximum of hardcore, balls to the wall training intensity. Top tip number 7. Now there are various ways of increasing the intensity of a set. One of the best ways to increase the intensity for muscle growth, also known as muscle hypertrophy, are forced repetitions. Now forced repetitions will require a good training partner or a good spot. The idea of a forced repetition is that your training partner will give you around about 15 to 20% help towards the end of a workout set. Make sure that they're not taking the complete amount of weight off you during the movement. Just a tiny little bit of help to allow you to push through a few more extra reps. Top tip number 8, sleep, rest, recovery. Okay, now this is when you grow. Your body will grow when you're doing nothing at all, which is fantastic. The only problem is in today's society, we don't allow ourselves that time to rest, which is vital, especially if we are after muscle growth. Okay, now the ideal amount of sleep you should be looking at getting is anywhere between 7 to 9 hours, 8 being the optimal. If you can try and restrain yourself to 4 sessions per week, you allow yourself a lot more time to grow. A lot of people get overeager when trying to pack on muscle mass and believe more is better. In this case, it's just not.